I observed 2 bodies in the river. Visually, I can remember it like it happened yesterday.
Then there was another one on the banks of the Green River. There was a serial killer at work.
When my sister's remains were found,
I was in so much pain.
We had to grieve how she was taken.
Did you kill all those women or what?
No, but I wish I did. I wish I did know who did.
Seattle area police may have finally caught up with the Green River killer.
I want to tell everybody that ever knew that they got him.
How do you plead to the charge of aggravated murder in the first degree?
Guilty.
So many of the families still had their daughters missing, so we needed to get them to take us to locations where he left victims.
4 detectives were assigned to interview him.
What we are really interested in covering are the locations of the bodies.
This is where it should be.
We weren't recovering any additional bodies. It was frustrating. Are we ever going to be able to find some relief for some family?
It was very disconcerting that we were being played.
Okay, we're going to try a different strategy. We brought in a profiler from the FBI to interview him.
We deal a lot with serial killers.
he had a methodology, and we needed to know what that was in order to find the rest of these women.
This is going to be very difficult.
You're not living up to your agreement.
Growing up in Kent, everybody hung out at the Green River.
There was a lot of trees then, and my sister and I made lots of forts, played out in the woods a lot. Opal and I were about 3 years apart. Sometimes it would just be me and her. When Opal was 16, she was avoiding home more because of my father. Because he was mean. He was very mean. When I hadn't seen her for 3 days, I was a little worried. I looked all over downtown for 3 straight days, looking for her.
In 1982, I was a brand new police officer, and we were dispatched to the Green River. Arriving on scene, I observed 2 bodies in the river. Visually, I can remember it like it happened yesterday. And then later in that day, we found the 3rd girl that was laying in the brush.
The women's bodies were nude, and they had indicators of manual strangulation.
Back in '82, obviously DNA still, existed, but there wasn't a process for it back then. But the crime scene techs were thorough and collecting anything possible, thinking that some technology is going to be developed someday that's going to be able to make those matches.
Police say that they will be keeping this whole area under close observation for the next few weeks.
The girls found at the river that day were Miss Hines, Miss Chapman, and Miss Mills.
When I went to the morgue to identify Opal, I don't know if it was denial or anything, but I said it wasn't her. Because it didn't look like the person I knew. But it was her.
Not long before those 3 victims were found, 2 similar victims were found on the Green River. You just don't have 5 victims all killed in the same manner, strangulation, dumped in the same location. This was completely out of the norm.
That was strong evidence to indicate that we were looking at one killer.
After those 5 bodies were found, the King County Sheriff's Department formed a task force, and the sheriff appointed me to run it. This was the biggest crime in King County, so there was a lot of pressure, but the task force had a responsibility that they felt about it. And so from the very beginning, I had a lot of very good investigators out there, and I thought one of them's going to solve this crime.
The more we know about the victims, the more we'll know about the offender. And most of the victims were women who engaged in sex for money, but they were somebody's mother, they were somebody's aunt, somebody's daughter, somebody's sister. And so when they initially got lost behind this label called prostitute, it's devastating to who these women, really were.
Opal was my younger sister. By the time I hit middle school, I was made fun of a lot. But she would stand up for me, which was kind of embarrassing. This teacher was going to give me a hack, and she busted in and said if he did, she was going to go off on him. She was like 4'6". So I forgot about all that.
We had the FBI come from Washington, D.C. to give us a profile on the killer.
The FBI profiler said the suspect would probably interject himself into the investigation. Soon after that, an individual, Melvin Foster, contacted us and said he knew a lot of the girls and that he'd drive them around here and there and so forth. So because of the profile that we had from the FBI, immediately he became a suspect.
Did you kill all those women or what? No, but I wish I did. I wish I did know who did. Because I'd put a stop to him.
Melvin Foster was a suspect, a very well-known suspect. We all saw him on the media. He absolutely loved the attention.
That is a trait of psychopathy. A psychopath wants to talk about themselves and be the center of attention.
Melvin was brought in and interviewed by the task force. Melvin Foster was an interesting person. Very articulate, but had some strange habits. He knew a lot of prostitutes, and he, in fact, utilized prostitutes from time to time.
He'd driven all these girls around and knew them by name.
Are you scared at all?
Scared? No. Fright is for the guilty.
During that process, the detectives gave him a polygraph.
You can call a person deceptive, means they're lying, they're telling the truth, or it's inconclusive.
The result would establish whether or not we were going in the right direction.
The responses about Melvin Foster's polygraph were deceptive.
It was literally like women went out and they just disappeared.
Undercover officers have been keeping a 24-hour watch on Melvin Foster.
Every time we turned around, we ran into a wall.
The Green River Killer, probably one man who has murdered 13 young women near Seattle. Case unsolved.
He started choking me. I ran as fast as I could.
I just was very convinced that this was the guy. We were going to be interviewing the Green River Killer.
I had a lot of rage at that time, and that's why I killed these women.
He said that he would show detectives where he had placed bodies.
I know this is the area. I covered it with branches.
We had nothing to show after all these weeks.
My whole family wanted closure on this, even if she was not still alive. This might be the place.
Was he jerking us around? It's hard to say.
My mind is not working the way that you wanted to.
He has a way of just driving a detective crazy.
In 1982, the bodies of 5 women were found in the Green River. There was a serial killer at work, targeting these women. We all desperately wanted to find who this person was.
Melvin Foster was a suspect in the Green River murders. The responses on Melvin Foster's polygraph were deceptive.
Nearly 60 police officers launched a massive search of Melvin Foster's home. Police took several pieces of women's clothing from Foster's house, items which Foster says belonged to his deceased mother.
When we went into the trunk of his car, there was that handprint on the upper part of the trunk. I was excited because Melvin interjected himself into the case, utilized prostitutes, And now we have a handprint. I thought, well, we're going to solve it.
For nearly a month now, undercover officers have been stationed in this area, keeping a 24-hour watch on Melvin Foster, who lives just up the road from here.
The handprint turned out to be one of his kids.
Some of us believed very much that it was Melvin Foster, but we had to let him go every time we interviewed him because we didn't have enough evidence to hold him on.
September 20th, 1982, somebody picked my sister up and she never came back. Debbie was put on the Green River missing list when they discovered her pictures in the prostitution files. Debbie was deemed a prostitute, not an exploited child like she actually was. She was not even old enough to consent to have sex. She was an exploited child, period. Debbie, my brother, myself, were all abused in every which way you can imagine. And Debbie had run away because of the abuse. Debbie was 15 and she was on the street. That thought is hard. It's hard for me now, to think about that.
When that body was found, things changed, because right after that body was found, numerous other bodies were found.
It was literally like women went out and they just disappeared, and trying to figure out who last saw them, what car they might have gotten into, or did they just simply go off the grid because they wanted to? Did they have a drug problem? Were they running away from home? It took a lot of folks to try to chase down all of these different leads and different theories.
Melvin Foster was still a suspect. We thought maybe he killed some of the Green River victims. Maybe there were two separate killers working at the same time. Maybe there was a copycat killer that we just didn't know.
The most likely suspect was a customer of the prostitutes. So the department went after everybody that was on the strip.
A lot of the female detectives were posing as decoys, hoping that the killer would try and come by and pick them up. Of course, we had backup officers in a position so they could see them and hear them and do what they needed to do to protect their lives. But nothing came from that effort at that time.
My Aunt Marie was last seen on April 30th, 1983. I miss my aunt every day. You can look at all of us and we all look like my aunt. So when you look in the mirror, all you do is see a piece of her. Every day, not a day goes by that I don't think about my aunt.
For the families of the missing persons, I can't imagine the heartache that they were going through. We wanted to find them, and we wanted to find them alive. Unfortunately, most of the time, we were giving death notices.
I remember the day that my grandfather sat me down. I was in his house in the living room, and he basically just said, "Your mom's not coming home. Mom's gone." And as at 5, I don't think you really truly comprehend that. I remember crawling underneath a bar stool and crying. It was extremely difficult, and I was extremely angry.
They call it the work of the Green River Killer, probably one man who has murdered 13 young women near Seattle. Case unsolved.
Day after day dealing with that, it'll drive you crazy.
You don't think that cops cry, but every once in a while you see them break down. Some officers have sought psychological help during the course of the investigation.
We didn't want to find any more young ladies out in the woods. That created a lot of pressure.
Both of my sisters and I, we were all out of the house early and young. One day I found out that April was in jail and that she had been arrested for prostitution. When I went to pick her up, She wanted to talk about it, but I wouldn't let her talk about it. And I can remember her looking out the window and just tears running down her face like they're running down my face. And I wish I knew why she was crying, but I didn't let her tell me. I'm really sorry about that. In September of 1983, she went missing. And we never heard from April again.
On November 29th, 1984, Rebecca Gardet did call in and reported an assault. A couple of detectives went out and talked to her.
Rebecca, would you go into a summary of that incident?
I just got off work. I thought I could get home faster by hitchhiking, so I stuck my thumb out and immediately got a ride. And so then I said, "Do you date?" "That's $20. And he said, "Okay." And he drove way in the back in the woods. And the whole time, I had this feeling in my gut. I just wanted to get this over with. I started, and he said I bit him. I go, "No, I didn't. You don't know what you're talking about." And then he got angry and started choking me. I couldn't even talk. I couldn't breathe. I couldn't do nothing. I just kept struggling to get away, and somehow he stopped what he was doing and he let me go. I took my purse and I ran as fast as I could.
Rebecca Gardet was shown a photo lineup that included people who had been arrested for agreeing to an act of prostitution.
Number 5.
That was number 5. And what would you say about number 5?
And I still remember his face. That is the man.
There's no doubt in your mind about that?
No doubt.
The Gardet assault was exactly how these victims had been killed. The strangulation, etc. Okay, this guy looks good. We need to take a look at this guy.
For a long time, people in the Seattle area and elsewhere in the Pacific Northwest have had a string of unsolved murders on their minds.
There were literally thousands of tips coming in. Rebecca Gardet contacted the task force in 1984 about an assault.
Number 5. I still remember his face.
We have identified our suspect in the Gardet assault case. Rebecca does not wish to prosecute for the assault. Her intention was just to identify a possible Green River suspect.
The Gardet assault was followed up on. Ridgway was contacted and recounted the same almost verbatim story that Rebecca Gardet had said. The difference being that she says that she never bit him. He says she did. He said it was a bad incident. That was the end of it.
We brought Ridgway in 1984 and polygraphed him. He said he didn't do the crime. He was not the Green River killer.
The examiner declared him truthful.
He'd passed a polygraph test. When we interviewed his coworkers, they laughed because they knew that mild-mannered Gary was not the Green River killer. Gary Ridgway had been married to Marcia Ridgway, and they had a son, but they divorced around 1981. When I contacted Marcia, she didn't think his behavior was unusual. He just didn't fit.
My sister, Opal, was 16. She was a young girl. I wanted them to catch somebody, but I wanted it to be the right person. Anybody I looked at could be a suspect. Anybody I know, so I withdrew. I wasn't friendly with anyone. Why be nice to somebody who could have done it?
Since 1982, we knew where Melvin Foster was at all times. Considering the number of victims being found, it was obvious that he didn't kill him. So Melvin Foster was no longer a suspect in the Green River murders.
7 women are dead, 9 more still missing, and police have spent $10 million hunting the most deadly serial killer in American history.
June of 1986, remains were found, and it was subsequently identified as Kim Nelson. Kim Nelson was last seen when she was working with her friend, Paige Miley. So I located Paige Miley to do an interview of her. Paige Miley said they'd never worked out there together before. Paige quickly got a date. She came back, and Kim was gone. Kim didn't come back. A couple days later, Paige was working, and this guy pulls up in a pickup and says, "Where's your blonde friend?" Which really freaked her out because she was only out there for, she says, about 10 minutes with her blonde friend before she disappeared and never was seen again. So she was convinced that whoever it was she spoke to was the person that killed her friend Kim Nelson. She gave us a composite sketch of the person that she thought was actually the Green River Killer. When I saw the likeness between the composite drawing and the booking photo of Ridgway, it was a match. I mean, I just couldn't believe it. It's him. I mean, it's Gary Ridgway. And so then there was already a montage. So my partner showed it to Paige, and she immediately picked Gary Ridgway out of the montage. Months earlier, Rebecca Garde also identified Gary Ridgway.
Number 5, I still remember his face.
So I got possession of all of Ridgway's time clocks. If a victim disappeared in the morning, he was working swing shift. If a victim disappeared in the afternoon, he was working day shift. And looking at this, I just was very convinced that this was the guy.
All the evidence pointed towards Ridgway. He was our primary suspect. And with that, we were able to get a search warrant.
It was an exciting day. Here we were finally going to be able to go into his residence to see if we could collect any evidence that we could actually charge him with the crimes. But nothing appeared to link him to the victims' bodies.
He did what we call lawyered up. And so we could no longer interview him about the case.
Most of us had this belief that someday, somehow, there was going to be new methods come forward of identifying people. So we took a saliva sample from Ridgway.
It was frustrating, depressing, because in our minds, we knew he was the killer. And it seemed like every time we turned around, we ran into a wall. What do we have to do to get him off the streets, get him behind bars, and save another victim from meeting their demise because of this guy?
In the midst of a brand new apartment complex, construction workers unearthed the skeletal remains of the Green River Killer's 40th victim. She was 15-year-old Deborah Lorraine Estes.
When I first found out that Debbie's remains had been found, I was in so much pain, and there was just no end in sight.
The identification of Estes leaves 8 women on the missing list.
It's extremely sad, and it's frustrating.
The investigation took its toll on me. I didn't like to see the count going up.
In 1988, we went for quite a while without finding new sets of remains, and there was some belief that maybe the Green River Killer had stopped.
Most members of the task force believed we weren't recovering any additional bodies because of the surveillance of Gary Ridgway.
Captain Frank Adamson was getting some pressure put on him by the politicians running the county.
A lot of money had been spent. The county executive was not happy with that and wanted to reduce the size of the task force.
The cost of the investigation. It was millions of dollars, but I rationalized the amount of money that we spent because there was nothing that paled with the loss of a human life, and these victims needed that kind of representation.
Under the pressure of a tight budget, Sheriff Vern Thomas cut 10 investigators from the case.
Recent cutbacks in the Green River Task Force mean the end to the unit.
The task force disbanded in the late 1980s.
When I left the task force, I didn't want to go. We all wanted to solve it.
The type of people that was working on the case did not want to give up.
We continued to watch Gary, and maybe our command staff, they weren't aware of that, but he was a hard suspect to let go because we really felt he was the guy that did this.
Sheriff Dave Reichert did keep a detective by the name of Tom Jensen monitoring the evidence and DNA that we had collected.
The crime lab techs recovered semen from the victims decades earlier. In 2000, they were able to take the saliva that we'd taken from different suspects that had been held in storage all those years, extract DNA from it, and they were able to make that match.
In 2001, results came back. Detective Jensen went to the sheriff's office and he said, I have results of the DNA. Guess who it is? Ridgway.
On November 30th of 2001, Gary Ridgway was arrested at his work for the murders of 4 of the girls, and those were through DNA hits.
Seattle area police may have finally caught up with the so-called Green River Killer.
I was really relieved when the crime was solved.
I was happy as a detective, but more importantly, it was going to be good news to our community and to the families that had lost their loved ones.
He was arrested. They had gotten him. And I wanted to tell everybody that I ever knew that they got him, and that I'm sorry for ever being mean to anybody because of it. Because it wasn't you, it was him. But I was happy, very happy.
Between 2001 and 2003, Gary Ridgway was in the King County Jail, awaiting trial on the charges. We were pursuing the death penalty.
What Gary Ridgway is accused of is bad enough, the brutal murder of 4 Seattle area women. But what he might turn out to be is even more unsettling. One of the worst serial killers the nation has ever known. So far, investigators can't link Ridgway to all 49 murders, but they plan to try.
They had actual evidence linking him to my sister, but there was still people who never found a body.
We wanted more than just 4 charges on him, and so we were busy.
Prosecutors are also sifting through some 10,000 pieces of evidence stored in a freezer and in boxes for nearly 20 years.
We went through, every case with a fine-tooth comb to see what, if any, evidence was there that we could subject to new technology. And eventually what we found on 3 of the victims, where there were some remnants of their clothing, were microscopic spheres of paint, the same paint that was being used at the Kenworth facility where Gary Ridgway worked back in the 80s.
That paint was then linked to what was recovered off of the girls.
And so we amended the charges and added 3 additional counts of murder. Shortly after we added the 3 additional counts, Ridgway's lawyers approached us and floated the idea that he would be potentially willing to cooperate and help us resolve the remaining cases and help us find the remains of missing women if we would agree to take the death penalty off the table. Engaging in a plea arrangement would allow us to provide some closure to some of the families. Now we have to decide, are we going to get information from him, or are we going to pursue the death penalty?
The pain and suffering he caused for so many people, if anybody deserved to die, it was him.
In the early 1980s, the area around the Green River, south of Seattle, was the site of one of the most gruesome serial killing sprees this country has ever seen. Gary Leon Ridgway, now in custody, was a prime suspect back then, but police didn't have enough evidence to make a solid case.
I always had in the background that someday the case was going to be solved and Gary would be arrested. Once the arrest was made, 19 years had gone by. We had over 40 potential King County victims. Plus, we still had many missing.
There were negotiations for a plea deal. Gary Ridgway's attorneys said that he would actually provide information and show detectives where he had placed bodies.
Gary Ridgway was the poster child for the death penalty. On the other hand, you had, is this really going to solve anything for the families? Is it eventually going to be reversed? And more importantly, we've now spent 18 months picking through these cases, and we can't tie them to any of these other cases. And we have a whole bunch of women who are still missing, and we needed to find their bodies if we pursue the death penalty. That still left 40 plus women on this list that we knew wouldn't necessarily have answers.
My family believed it was Gary, but without any evidence or anything, what can you do? You can't do anything. So it just left an empty spot in everybody's life. What once was a loving family turned into a family searching for their baby that would never be found.
During the negotiations for a plea deal, usually my feelings would be, no way. But in this case, absolutely. If we could recover any of those girls for the families, that was most important.
You raise your right hand and administer the oath. In this marriage, you solemnly swear to tell the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth, so help you God.
I do.
In exchange for a promise not to seek the death penalty against him, the defendant is willing to plead guilty.
We had to come up with an agreement that frankly had just never been done before.
The defendant recalls killing 47 to 53 individuals in King County. Is that an accurate statement?
Yes, it is.
We were going in a little bit blind, to be honest, because we didn't know how many murders he'd committed at that point, so we put a range of murders.
And is it your intention today to enter into this agreement with the state of Washington?
Yes, it is.
The media was, frequently reporting every single thing that happened with Ridgway. So we knew that we couldn't possibly bring him in and out of the jail on a daily basis in order to interview him. So the plan was that we would check him out of the jail and that we would move him into our office space. We cleared out the evidence room and put a mattress in there. We blacked out all the windows, we cut off all the janitorial service. The captain became responsible for cleaning the restrooms. We bought a camping shower bag so that he could shower in the men's restroom. We had a SWAT team assigned to guard him, and we moved him out in the middle of the night from the jail. We moved him into our office, and he lived there with us.
The detectives are going to come in questioning.
Okay.
4 detectives were assigned to interview him.
Yes. This is Tom Jensen, the Sheriff's Department. This is Detective Sue Peters.
That's fine.
Detective Jensen was the knowledge behind every single case. Detective Mullenix was also one of the main interviewers. Detective John Matson, and myself.
All of these things that you signed here today are kind of boils down to all we want to hear is the truth about what has happened over the last 20-some years.
We all assumed he was ready to lay his soul bare and tell us what he'd been holding in for 20 years.
We had no idea how long it was going to take to get the truth.
When I killed the women, I didn't see their faces. I choked them from the back. I had a lot of rage at that time, and That's why I killed these women.
And how did you kill her?
Like this.
When Gary was talking about the methods of how he killed the girls, it was obviously quite disturbing, and he even would reenact it. It was sickening, to watch him, and he was so casual in the way he talked about it.
One of the things that you learn to do as detectives and as prosecutors is not to show that you're horrified by what the person is telling you, because that just shuts them down.
It's a hard job. We had to deal with a lot, but we treated him obviously with respect. We were trying so hard for the victims' families and our community to get as much information out of him as possible.
What we are really interested in covering in this evening's sessions are the locations of the bodies.
Okay.
We'll be all getting into vans and going out to locations so that you can show us in person where some of these bodies are or where you put them. A very large map of King County here.
Let's go, I think Melbar.
Correct.
I don't know for sure. She might be the one up at Kmart. I know exactly where it is.
It's another site.
It's another site. They don't show any cutoffs, but there's a loop in the road somewhere. I think it might be McGinnis or April Butcher. Right over here is where I put the body in, about 20 feet and off to the left.
Did you carry her or drag her?
I drug her always from the shoulders. I never drug her by the feet.
So with your arms
like that.
Under her? So her feet would actually be dragging?
Yes.
Clearly it sounds like you can drive us out there and show us these spots.
Yes.
Let's just go.
We loaded up Gary Ridgway in the van for field trips with security in hopes that this was going to be easy. We're going to go to areas that he pointed out that he specifically remembers where he had placed the victims' bodies.
It was on the left side here. Can we get out right here? See, Eeks?
Mr. Ridgway suddenly started calling to me outside the van.
Is that a bone fragment down there by your foot? Over in front of the hubcap.
The idea that there was some remains of one of his victims at my foot right beside the van was obviously absurd.
Plastic?
It was just bizarre that he called me out. It's more evidence that he wants to engage with women. And I think that was kind of, for me, the first realization of whoa, this is going to be very difficult.
It's way overgrown. Doesn't look like this has got to be it.
You think this is the area?
I know this is the area. 100% sure it is. No doubt.
You think this is the area?
I know this is the area. 100% sure it is. No doubt.
Gary was sure we were going to be recovering bones. We were very excited. We didn't know if we were on a wild goose chase with Gary, but we had high hopes that we could actually bring home more girls to their families.
When April left in 1983, we never heard from her again. My mom used to say to me sometimes, well, maybe she'll come home this year at Christmas. Mom thought that she was with somebody somewhere. She spent a lot of money with psychics trying to figure out where she was at. Some of them would give her a lot of hope. That's what it's like living without knowing if someone you love and you care about is ever coming home. You believe a bunch of bullshit.
tell you, Gary, I'm getting a little frustrated here, okay? Like, I gotta let you know that...
I know.
If you're blowing smoke up my ass, eventually it's gonna come out my ears.
No, it's very depressing for me, too.
Oh, okay, yeah, right.
It was very trying, dealing with him and being frustrated with the fact that we weren't finding anything. There were 12 searches, and it just made you angry.
Was he confused? Was he jerking us around? It's hard to say. But being a detective, it's something in you that you won't give up. You just keep going.
Present in the room are Gary Ridgway, Detective Sue Peters, Detective Randy Molinex.
We tried different strategies to see what would work best with Gary. And sometimes if nothing's working, we brainstorm. And I came up with a tactic. Let's separate the old Gary from the new Gary. We can't change the old Gary and all the bad things you did, but the new Gary has a fresh start. Be truthful. Tell us everything you possibly can.
You've changed quite a bit. I mean, I've got to know you over the past couple days and what you're like. Would you say you were different back then when you were in your mid-20s?
Yes, I was.
Okay. So, are you as violent now today as back then?
No.
Okay. This Gary, at that time period, was killing women. We're getting to know this Gary a little bit more. Not the person you are right now.
The old Gary, new Gary was kind of an attempt to give him an out, to see if kind of trying to help him separate himself emotionally might allow him to be more forthcoming with us about what he had done and pinpoint the locations where we would find some remains.
Let's talk about the neon site.
That's when I started burying them, and when I started taking them out where I wouldn't go back. I had to bury her because I had a tendency, not a tendency of wanting to go back and screw her while they're dead, but I didn't do that.
You had an urge to go back and have sex with their bodies?
As I went back, I did have an urge, but I didn't do it. And I was.
All of us were surprised when he first made the comment about burying the bodies so he could resist going back and having sex with the bodies. I don't know that it was something that was really on our radar that much before.
If he went back, if he had an urge to have sex with their bodies after they were dead, that's him. That's not you.
There was something more that was going on here that might explain some of the patterns that we were seeing. And we wanted some answers so we could find some remains.
I know it was more than an urge. Okay. I know that you went back. It's okay if you did. All right. It's nothing to be ashamed of.
As you do whenever you're trying to get someone to confess, we tried to normalize it.
If he feels it's normal, then most likely he will admit to things that he did.
Thousands of people have done it before you. You're not the first one.
Yes, I did lie about that. But that's when I went back. Going back to have sex with him was a sexual release.
It was a huge admission when he finally admitted to the necrophilia, because I think we finally were getting a little bit of glimpse under the hood, so to speak, of what was going on in his mind.
How are you today?
Pretty good.
Pretty good? I understand you wanted to say something to us.
On June 18th, Gary Ridgway woke up as the old Gary, who was angry.
This is the old Gary?
This is the old Gary, 82 Gary. You want to talk to somebody, you talk to me, because I'm the one.
The old Gary, the new Gary, he played into it.
Let the old Gary out. Let the old Gary out.
Carol Christensen meant nothing to me. I didn't care about their bodies. I dragged them from their feet.
Does the new Gary feel the same way the old Gary does?
No, the new Gary is a candy ass. He's a wimp. New Gary wants me to candy coat this stuff, and I'm not going to candy coat it.
He was angry that morning and pissed off. He didn't like the new Gary, the nice guy.
I did it because I hated them, and after I killed them, I might have screwed a few of them, but I didn't give a shit. They were just pieces of trash to me.
He loved the persona of being the Green River Killer.
Did you kill her?
Yes, I did.
We have to understand more about how he committed his crimes and understand what made him tick.
To have your son in the car with you, that would be an incredible ruse.
That happened once.
These people do not bond. They do not bond with their biological children either.
Are you sure that this is the place?
I'm still uncertain about it.
You just got to try different strategies and see if anything will work.
Does this seem familiar at all to you?
No, it doesn't.
We were all contemplating whether or not to pull the deal and pursue the death penalty.
This contract says you tell us the truth.
And if I don't, because if I don't remember,
we don't believe any of that.
I mean, that just really showed you how sick Gary Ridgway is.
In 2003, the Green River Killer had been caught.
Gary Ridgway had entered into a deal with King County Sheriff to provide information and be interviewed by detectives of the task force.
So many of the families still had their daughters missing, so we needed to get him to take us to locations where he left the victims.
They were just pieces of trash to me.
Why'd you hate him so much?
Why did I hate him? Because women had control over me, and I don't like being controlled. I didn't want to pay for sex. The burn on my arm is not a burn. This is scratch marks. These are from Milvar. She scratched me. When I was killing her, she fought. She scratched me here. I had control, and that's what it all comes down to, is control of those bitches.
When he'd go into the old Gary, he'd have this anger.
Old Gary, where you been?
And stuck in that other Gary's head. He didn't want me to come out.
He would close his eyes and seem like he was, this is the Gary that can't ever kind of get his voice out.
What else is the old Gary going to tell us that the new Gary wouldn't?
Could you tell us about Maria Milvar?
The body.
The body, I left it right there on the spot where I killed her. The sites, I agreed with you, or I told you that's exactly where they are, and that's where they are. I'm getting out of my rage right now, so.
Don't be a candy ass. Let him back in. Is the old Gary tough enough to answer these questions or not?
The old Gary is, but
you're telling me he's tough, but every time we get tough, the old Gary sort of slides back inside.
I'm coming down. I just don't have that rage to bring out that. I need to have the rage to tell you this stuff.
He's so bizarre that it started to look like it was just more of his game that he was playing with us. And it seemed completely faked.
Even though we didn't believe him, there's so many days you don't learn anything, and then all of a sudden you'll get a little something. And so it kind of revives you as a detective. Okay, we just got to keep plugging on.
Mike, you know that exit where you got to from Auburn to Enumclaw? That's where we're going to take.
It might be the place, but let's go a little further up.
You don't like this spot?
No.
Why?
It just doesn't look familiar.
His memories were all over the board. It felt like deep down he knew the information, but he was withholding and lying to us. And so people did come down on him because we wanted the truth.
Now, I got to be honest with you, Gary. What's the truth here? Where are we at here, Gary? Is the old Gary going to tell us the truth? Is the new Gary going to come up? Is the candy ass going to be here? Is a strong person going to be here? I'd kind of like to know, because your agreement was to tell us everything you about. I have a proffer here that spells out exactly what you say you can do. Mm-hmm. Gary, have you done any of them? Have you done any of them?
My mind is not working the way that you want it to. It's not working. It's not working.
We still don't have anything from you, do we? You know what? Right now, as I see it, and I'm just a little detective. You're not living up to your agreement.
We had a game plan every day. We're always trying to change it up to see what would benefit us. And we knew Gary really enjoyed the field trips. We felt if we keep rewarding him with field trips, he wasn't going to give us information. So On July 1st of 2003, we got Gary ready to go for the field trip.
Ready to go.
Okay, here he is away.
But the detectives knew that it wasn't going to happen.
I'm not happy. I'm not happy because it's a waste of my time. Okay? Why are you wasting my time? They're calling bullshit on your story. It's the whole day after digging. 51 posts on that guardrail for nothing. You're not going anywhere. Take his ass back to the cell.
He was definitely scared that day, but he didn't give us further information. Okay, we're going to try a different strategy. Somebody came up with the idea that we would actually give him pictures of the girls.
Write as much as you can about them.
And have him write down his personal memories that came to mind when he saw that person. Maybe he would add something new to the paper that we didn't know about. We tried that. And did it work?
Yeah, I didn't do too good on this.
I don't think anything worked with Gary Ridgway.
We were extremely skeptical that he had told us anything that was true.
It was quite frustrating. We were trying to figure out what else could we do to try to get the truth. And someone on our command staff learned of Mary Ellen O'Toole.
Back in 2003, I was assigned to the BAU, or the Behavioral Analysis Unit, at the FBI Academy at Quantico, Virginia. In July, I received a call from the chief prosecutor, Jeff Baird. He said, "Why is the Green River Killer lying about everything?" I said, "That's one of the traits of the psychopathic personality construct. They're pathological liars." After we spoke, Jeff asked me if I could come out there to participate in the interviews.
So it was very intentional to bring her in and to see if she could reach him in a way that none of us had been able to.
Certainly the priority is to find the victims and bring their bodies home to the families. But to be able to get to them, we have to understand more about how he committed his crimes and understand what made him tick.
Ms. Ridgway, I'm Dr. Mary Ellen O'Toole. I work in the National Center for the Analysis of Violent Crime. Back at the FBI Academy, the Behavioral Analysis Unit.
You're walking into the room of a predator. It's a prey-predator relationship. You are the prey and they're the predator. That means that they are watching everything you do and listening to everything that you say. So I wanted to sort of build up my persona in terms of who I was and what I was there to achieve.
We do study serial murders and the people that commit these crimes. However, we don't have time for every serial murder case in the country. A lot of them simply are not of interest to us. We have to prioritize.
Right.
Does that make sense to you? We deal a lot with serial killers. They're not all equally interesting to us. Understand?
I told him that because I wanted to move him towards wanting to become a part of this FBI research on serial murders, to really motivate him to say, oh, whoa, wait a minute. I am a very interesting serial killer. I want to talk to you. It was something that we had to do in order to get him to take us to all of these remains of these other women and bring them home to their loved ones.
I feel I can help.
Okay. It is my experience that the mothers are very influential in how these offenders develop and evolve into the kind of serial murderer that they become. And Ms. Ridgway, I want to get right to your mother. In talking with the investigators, one of the questions that we had was, why was Gary selecting prostitutes for his victims? And if there was a relationship that might have existed with how he perceived his mother, or maybe something that happened when he was a little boy. So we wanted to pursue that. Ms. Ridgway, who is that?
That's my mother, yeah.
The picture that I showed Gary of his mother was somewhat provocative. He didn't have any warning, and that was by design. If you prepare someone too much for what their emotional experience is about to be, it no longer becomes genuine. And so at that time, he became a little teary-eyed. I think I pushed a button for him, and that told me that was a vulnerable time for him and his development.
What was the oldest that you were when your mom saw you naked?
About 13 when I had to go to, when I wet the bed and had to wash off in the bathtub.
Tell me about that.
Well, I was still wet in the bed about that time and embarrassed about it. I'd be paraded through from the bedroom to the bathroom with sometimes naked.
You'd be paraded?
Be depressed all day because of that.
I was asking Gary about the bedwetting because that was a difficult area for him to talk about.
What would your mother say to you?
Disgrace me or, yell at me. We're wet in the bed. The baby's wet in the bed. Aren't you going to grow up? But she degraded me. Didn't feel love. Didn't feel that much love at that time.
Gary cried when he talked about feeling unloved by his mother. And he cried several times as he's discussing his mother. And I was going to go there in much greater detail because I saw that emotion.
Was she there in the bathtub with you?
She was there, in the bathtub washing me off. She had to hold my penis and wash around it.
How old were you when that occurred? How young were you?
Maybe up to 8 or 9 or something like that.
Does that sound normal to you?
I thought it was normal. I thought it was normal.
These people are not 100% bad 100% of their lives. It takes developmental issues to get them to the point where they are. But there was a time in Gary's life that I think if there was intervention, it would have been when he was young. Now, the goal is to take me to that point in your life when sexual fantasies become violent.
Mr. Ridgway, we talked about your mom's role in your development. When did you think about killing your mom?
During the interviews of Gary Ridgway, we were trying to locate the missing people we had to try to recover bodies. Miss O'Toole, when she interviewed him, she had a way of trying to pull information out of him. Very patient. She appeared that, she was very concerned about Gary.
And your development. When did you think about killing your mom?
It is a strategy to ask somebody when, not if. If I ask if, it gives them a way out to say, no, I was never like that. But when I say when, I take away the shock value of them having to say, oh yeah, well, I did that too. I make the assumption to them that I know this occurred. Let's talk about when it occurred.
It was probably in the fourth grade, or when I had some trouble with school. I didn't have any patience.
When did you think about having sex with your mother?
When? 14 or 15, I think.
When violence and sex become intertwined, that's a critical period of development for a sex offender.
At the same time in your life, you also hate your mom for what she's doing to you.
Yes.
That's when violence and sexuality became intertwined for Gary Leon Ridgway.
Knowing what you know now, what do you think is the link between your mom, looking at your mom like this, and the fact that you chose prostitutes? What's the connection?
There's a connection, sex, I think.
How did you decide on what ruse you were going to use on what woman to make you appear normal. Explain that process to me.
I wanted to better understand how he was able to access these women and convince these women that he could be trusted.
Well, one of them was, first she wants to see my ID. So I whip out my ID, and with my ID would be my son's picture on the back side, and they'd see that, and that would lower any big defenses.
But you were really using your son as part of your ruse.
That's extremely manipulative when you think you used your son to convince women to come into the car, and that goes to the soul of someone who's psychopathic.
Sure, you had to make it sound good.
I wanted to go beyond that. If I had said to Gary, did you ever bring your son along with you and actually have him physically in the car, then he has the responsibility of saying, oh, if I say yes, I'm really going to look terrible. I take away that whole decision-making process from him.
The only thing that would be better than that would be to have your son in the car with you. That would be an incredible ruse.
That happened once.
What happened?
I picked up a woman on back highway, and Matthew was next to me in the seat, and she hopped in and took her into an area, and my son was there, and I killed her. I'm real sure my son didn't see it.
You use your own biological child to get these women to come into your car, ultimately to kill them. That's stunning to me. Again, it's the essence of psychopathy. These people do not bond. They do not bond with their biological children either. They will use their children like pawns to get what they want. That is a message I cannot underscore enough when we're talking about people that are truly psychopathic.
He was sick. He was totally sick. I mean, that just really showed you how sick Gary Ridgway is.
When he told us about how he had used his son, he was starting to open up a little bit more. And so we felt like maybe we were making some progress in trying to put together the puzzle of who he was and what he had done, so that we would be able to find the remains of these women.
Back in the 80s, when we would find remains somewhere in clusters, a group of women together, and some were individually placed.
From a behavioral perspective, I think that there was a reason why he left the remains in clusters. He had a methodology to his clusters, and we needed to know what that was.
And there are some women that stand out in your mind, I would suspect. Can we put them in categories? Special?
That would have been a special one, yeah. Young
and then not so special?
Yeah, not so special.
I started to ask Gary to rank his victims because it had a very important investigative significance. Our goal was to uncover all of these women's remains and bring them home to their loved ones. So in order to do that, I wanted to go about it indirectly to determine if you had a special victim, would that make a difference on where you left her?
Not so special would be just, she didn't scratch me, didn't, just died easily.
Not so special.
That'd be not so special.
A really, really special person deserved what kind of a place?
A place by herself from the rest of them. I wouldn't put any more there for some reason. I don't know why.
Listening to you talk the other day, there was the woman that scratched you. Mm-hmm. You talked about that. The feeling that I got listening to you, that you were very angry with her.
Mm-hmm. She was fighting and scratching. She would be in a really special place.
292nd and West Valley Highway.
Gary claimed that Marie Melbar's body was in the area of South 292nd Street. The detectives were hopeful that Gary would be able to take us to the remains.
When one of your children are missing, you can't do anything but hope she comes home, but you can only hope for so long. My whole family wanted a closure on this, even if she was not still alive.
Marie was a feisty individual. She would give you the shirt off her back, and she didn't take no mess from nobody. She was short, but she stood tall. I was one of Marie Melvar's best friends growing up. So many years after Marie was last seen, we didn't know if she was dead or alive because her body was never found, so we weren't able to have her funeral. If it could bring closure to the family, I was hopeful that her body would be found.
What I'm looking for is a road halfway up the hill.
Yeah,
Melvar was on the hill. I'm 100% sure we're going to find her body, at least the skulls and whatever.
We have to gather up our group of detectives. Everything has to be cleared. It's very, very difficult with our terrain in King County.
I always had hope. I was always optimistic that the field trips would be successful.
We were determined to recover the remains of Miss Melvar.
Marie Malvar was one of the women that remained missing. She had been missing for more than 20 years. Gary Ridgway told us where exactly he placed her remains.
It was unbelievable. We hadn't recovered any bodies. I had worked the Green River case for many, many years, and I had become very close to the families. It's going to be a very sad day if we don't find anybody. And so we never gave up. We kept plugging along. If you did give up, I don't think you would be part of the Green River Task Force. If nothing's working, you just got to try different strategies and see if anything will work.
Would you like to try to make a fresh start?
Mm-hmm. Gary knew that all of these interviews were being taped, and he absolutely loved being the center of attention. And frankly, he loved the persona of being the Green River Killer. He didn't shy away from that. He loved that.
There are a number of serial killers out there who, once they get arrested, they think that, well, you know, so-and-so will write a book about me, and that'll make me like the most prolific serial killer. And I can't emphasize enough how you lack control over what's written in a book.
Control was very important to him. So that was my strategy to explain. You talk to us now, you determine the narrative. If you have somebody else, they'll decide what's important. So which way do you want it?
And kind of working with our unit, you put out the information that's important, and you have control over it, and it's a way of establishing your bona fides as a serial killer.
Maybe if Ridgway could somehow be a teacher to the FBI or to law enforcement about serial killers, that might appeal to his ego and get him to open up a little bit more.
And really what I need for you to do is to, you know, actually, I know you know we're on tape, but actually just look into that camera and kind of let people know that you are committed to work with our unit. I need to actually have you say that.
I would like to help the FBI.
The reason that I did that was to make it seem a lot more formal. Okay, you're looking into the camera and you're basically saying that you are going to do this.
I would like to help the FBI to help educate them on what I was at that time when I was killing people, and to see if it can help change somebody early in their development, that they won't turn out like me.
After that, we went out on another field trip and found nothing. We were thinking, how long is this going to be going on? I mean, it probably could go on for years.
Build him back up next time.
And I just like, oh my God, if I have to look at him one more day, he has a way of just driving a detective crazy.
We had nothing to show after all these weeks, and it was very disconcerting that we were being played.
Mr. Ridgway, I'm Patty Eakes. I'm one of the prosecutors.
Hi.
On July 30th, the team and I decided that I would go in and talk to Gary.
And I just want to make sure that I explain to you a very important part of the contract and make sure you understand it. Okay?
Okay.
This entire deal hinged on him telling us about crimes and voluntarily telling us. We could pull the plug on it at any moment, and he could be facing the death penalty again, and this was kind of his last chance to tell us the truth.
This contract says you tell us the truth, you tell us about your crimes, and we will not seek the death penalty. The contract doesn't say that we have to ask you about it in order for you to tell us about it. You seem to kind of have this habit of only wanting to admit to the things that we confront you about.
He was required to confess to any and all homicides that he committed in King County. And if he confessed to them, they were covered by the deal.
Even though you get this deal, and even though you may plead guilty to a whole lot of cases and get sentenced to life,
yes,
you could still, at some later point, face prosecution for any case that you didn't own up to, and you may be facing the death penalty.
And if I don't, for some reason, maybe I don't because I don't remember.
None of the, I have a memory problem. We don't believe any of that. We've been here for a long time, so you need to give it some thought, and you need to own up to any place within King County, any murder that you committed. Okay?
Okay.
The tactic was just to see if that could prompt him to be more fulsome in his disclosures to us.
Understood?
I understood, yes.
Okay.
After I spoke to Gary, he created a lot of lists and notes and seemed like he was finally going to tell us the truth.
There is another victim all the way out by 410.
Why has this information not come up yet?
Well, it just came up.
Either Gary was jerking us around again, or the truth was coming out.
Yeah, this is it.
Yeah, this is it. There is another victim all the way out by 410.
Either Gary was jerking us around again, or the truth was coming out.
Yeah, this is it.
Yeah, this is it.
I was out of the office when I got the call. They had found remains out on 410. The entire team was elated. I mean, we were so relieved that finally something had turned out to be true. We were all just so overwhelmed with emotion that finally we had found some remains.
All those months, all those hours, it finally paid off. Now we can at least go to one family and give them a little bit of relief. It was emotional. It was worth it all. The plea deal finally made sense. I think finding Miss A. Vent did renew the task force hope. The truth was coming out. Of course, now we're like excited because we want to keep going, want to keep having success.
Anything to tell us about any of those, or?
Lake Fenwick.
Lake Fenwick is
April.
April
Buttram.
Did you know her?
Yes, I did.
Being back to this road now for the third or the fourth time, How certain are you that it's this road, Lake Fenwick Road?
I'm real certain it is. This is where it should be,
On August 30th, 2003, we recovered some additional bones.
We all had hope until a detective called my mom and asked for DNA tests. That, I think it kind of came home to where there was not going to be the day that she walked through the door with grandbabies. Yeah.
April Buttram's body was identified from the Lake Fenwick area.
You know, it had been 20 years for my sister, so when they found her, they only found 2 bones. It was just a miracle that there was anything left of her. It brought closure to our family. Now we can go about what's important, and that's remembering the good things about her, not wondering.
I put her up next to a fence.
Okay.
This is about what it looks like.
Where would you have placed the body?
Up against the fence, right in this area.
One of the locations was this area in a different part of Seattle, and he kept insisting that he had killed a woman there and left her there, and that her remains had been found. And we didn't have anything that matched up to that.
Yeah, this is the kind of fence that was up in here.
Then, of course, everybody kicked into action to go through the database and try to figure out, does this actually match up to anything that they ever received back then? Finally, we realized that the medical examiners had in fact found a woman there years ago, but that her death had been classified as a drug overdose. The victim's last name was Yellow Robe. We had to inform her family that their daughter, who up until that point the entire family thought had died from a drug overdose, was in fact a victim of the Green River Killer.
I said, that can't be possibly true. It just can't be. I mean, it's been 5 years. How could this be true? And she said, Ronna, it's true. You have to go through the grieving process again because we already lost her one way, and then to find out, even though we knew she wasn't coming back, we had to grieve how she was taken. But regardless of how ugly the truth was, there was a certain peace that we felt as a result of knowing the truth. As dark as it was better than hearing that she took her own life with a needle.
The other day we were talking about special places. Well, Melbar was a fighter and she was special. She should be down at the bottom of the hill.
Is that the area you're thinking of, or are you thinking more up the hill?
It has to be down here.
Marie Malbar was somebody who had been missing for more than 20 years. And there was great interest in trying to find her remains.
But the last time and the time before, you said that this was the location.
Yes.
We were clearing an entire hillside, and it was in a steep canyon. We were determined to recover remains, and so the search team searched the hill from the bottom to the top. On September 26, 2003, we recovered the remains of Miss Melvar at the top of the hill. That was an important day. We can now tell her family that she had been found.
I'll never forget times my grandfather used to tell me, she'll be home one day, but never came home. And I think when they found my aunt's remains, he could rest. He was done.
I'm so grateful that the investigators were able to get a confession and bring Marie's body home. We had a funeral to say goodbye to somebody who was very beautiful. It was bittersweet. It was closure. I was angry, but most of all, I was happy that she can be at peace and laid to rest. and the family didn't have to worry no more.
For several more months, Gary kept providing us different locations, and we would continue to go out to those areas and dig and clear the area. But we weren't producing, and we weren't recovering any additional bodies. At some point, we had to shut down, and we did.
This was a huge production that went on for 6 months, and it was worth it to us to do that.
We had put thousands of hours into this journey interviewing Gary Ridgway. The total number of people we were able to recover was 4. One of the victims was never identified. We felt good that at least some success had come of all this, and then we moved on into the day in court.
Now in session, Honorable Richard A. Jones presiding.
Good morning. Please be seated.
It was a family's day in court to see this monster.
My name's Jose Malvar Jr. I've been waiting for this day to come.
How do you plead to the charge of aggravated murder in the first degree as charged in count 1 for the death of Wendy Lee Caulfield?
Guilty.
Gary Ridgway ended up pleading guilty to killing 48 women.
How do you plead to the charge of aggravated murder in the first degree as charged in count 5 for the death of Opal Mills?
Guilty.
They said, Opal Mills,
number 5, guilty. But I wanted him to know she was more than just a number.
The families got to speak, and you can imagine what they wanted to do to him in court that day. Yeah, it was a tough day.
Let me remind you of my sister, Marie Malvar, the one that permanently put a scar on your left arm.
You're a loser, you're a coward, you are nobody, you're an animal. I'm angry, I will always be angry. I will never have that closure. I will never have my sister back in my life. You broke my family apart, 20 years. I hope you rot in hell, son of a bitch.
When they told me the reason his arm looked the way he did was because of my aunt, that put a smile on my face. Every day that he looks at his arm, he has to realize that Melvar did that to him. So that made me feel good in the end.
I don't wish for him to die. I wish for him to have a long, suffering, cruel death.
He's gonna go to hell, and that's where he belongs.
I can only hope that someone gets the opportunity to choke you unconscious 48 times.
This was a hate crime against women and children. After today, I will not give this parasite a thought.
I was only 5 when my mother died. There's nothing that anybody can say or ever do for me that will bring my mother back.
I spent the weekend trying to face the past. I drove by the homes where Opal and I grew up. This is where I had promised her that I would never leave her, and I would never let anyone hurt her. I then drove down to the Green River. I hadn't been there in over 20 years, but I sat on the bank and cried. Mostly I cried about letting Opal down when she needed me most and breaking my promise never to let anyone hurt her.
I mean, we all cried a lot that day, so all the prosecutors do it. You know, we'd all been prosecutors for a long time and prosecuted lots of murder cases, but this was just an exceptional, the whole event was, so.
Gary Ridgway was finally sentenced to life without parole. I just was glad that day came because now we can put this behind us.
I can't imagine what it was like to work on a case like this. The fact that the detectives were willing to go to the end because it wasn't their family that they were doing it for. They already had him. They could have said, we don't need to look for those few girls that are still missing that we don't know anything about. fact that they were willing to continue searching means a lot. We are eternally grateful.
The work that the investigators, the detectives, the prosecuting attorneys did created a place for me that I could actually heal.
Sue Peters, she put like a human face to it. She showed compassion, so I appreciated her.
You know, a lot of people like to talk about the Green River Task Force and what it was like to be on the case, but most of us, it was just a time we did what we did, and you just don't talk about it much.
I still think about the case very often. I do believe there are other victims that we may never know about.
You know, it's 30 years from the time that I started that investigation, and I still dream about the loss of these victims. You don't put it away. The victims were the most important people in the world to me.
And after the sentencing, started to like people again, and I felt like a 2-ton weight was taken off of me. I was like a different person just months later.
I realized through this experience that I've become stronger, and I use it to help other women, and I think that's what my sister would want me to do.
My memory of Debbie has made me very strong. I've been able to come back from literally being a shell of a person.
I know my mom's with me. I know she's around me at all times. She's a part of me. The legacy that we live and the legacy that we leave behind is so important.
We talk about her. We remember the important things about who she was, her goodness, her kindness.
I want the world to know that Marie Melvar was one of a kind. You'll never find another one like her.
My cousins and I keep her legacy going, so they'll never forget.
For more about Criminal Confessions, go to Oxygen.com.